Yes, tomorrow's my last meeting.
It is?
No, it's June.
June.
Right, that's what I told him.
Oh.
He told me. I was like, no, it's not.
Yeah, I was like, really? I was so surprised. You saw
Good
this.
morning.
How are you? Good to see you.
You saw the surprise on my
Yeah,
face,
well, I know.
right?
It was mine too when you said it last night.
And the last one's on Eastern Shore, which
Right,
is
at
his
Salisbury.
backyard.
Yes.
So, okay then.
All right. Nice job yesterday.
Bill Wood is
Oh, gosh, on the phone.
yeah,
Thank you.
nobody will let him in.
No, he's on. He's in. He's just moving.
It's a good
I thought it was a great
Thank you.
Oh, absolutely.
I've
We
already
have a plan.
programmed.
Yeah.
Okay.
A lot of work to do.
Maybe I'll get an
That
answer.
we're figuring it out well.
Absolutely.
Good morning. Oh, you're welcome. Monday. You don't have to look at it now. I'll look at it.
Okay. I guess we just. I can't find something hard enough to.
There you go.
Seem pretty good. Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, everyone, and thanks for joining us. Our April meeting is one of my favorites because at this meeting, we celebrate the system's exceptional faculty. The Regents Faculty Awards are the highest faculty honor given by the board. But while we confer these awards, it's our winners' colleagues who nominate them for recognition. And I think that's an even more meaningful gesture. Chancellor Perman and I just finished presiding over the ceremony, and you've seen the recipients on the slideshow we had running before the meeting. But I'm delighted that so many of our winners have joined us now so that we may recognize them one more time in person. Could our faculty award winners please stand? And I think you don't have a choice because it's kind of standing room only. We can give you one last round of applause. I know that you're all very busy. That's probably why you won the award. So we'll forgive you if you'd rather not stay for our day-long meeting. But thank you for coming. Before we get underway, I want to share that our USM women are well represented on the Daily Register's Top 100 Women in America. In fact, we had too many on the list to mention all of them by name, but I would like to congratulate UMES President Heidi Anderson, who joined the Circle of Excellence as a 3-time winner. Congratulations, President Anderson. And I congratulate our Bowie State host with 3 honorees: Dr. Jacqueline Heel, Chair of the Department of Nursing; Ms. Janetta Hardy, Executive Director of the Entrepreneurship Innovative Center; and President Amita Bro. Congratulations. All all 100 women will be recognized at a ceremony on May 6th. What a wonderful testament to excellence. Let me quickly review some early items on our agenda and some changes in order. We'll begin with public comment, followed by a welcome from President Bro. And President Bro, I just want to thank you again for a fantastic evening last night. Not just the food, but the entertainment was just superb. Thank you. Then we'll hear from Bowie State Police Captain James Booker, who will give a security vignette, followed by Chancellor Perman's report. We held the educational forum yesterday afternoon to afford our presenters sufficient time to get through all of the material. The 2-hour presentation was on Title IX sexual misconduct, and it was led by Janet Judge, a national expert on Title IX in higher education and sports administration. Later in the morning, I'll share more about the board's work to strengthen Title IX practices across the USM. I appreciate everyone's commitment to this work as we move forward. And so now, moving forward with the agenda, I'll ask Ms. Wilkerson to take over and lead us through the public comment session.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Each regularly scheduled meeting of the Board of Regents will include a period of public comment. In accordance with the guidelines for public comment, which are posted on the USM website, the agenda includes set-aside time for this purpose. Requests should be submitted 48 hours before the meeting, and comments should pertain to an agenda item. 4 speakers have requested to address the board. I'm not sure if they are all here. I do know of one, at least one that is here, so I'll call their names momentarily. Just so everyone knows, the board fully dedicates this period to the speakers, and the board will not respond to questions or comments during the meeting. As needed, any follow-up will take place afterwards. So let me invite our first speaker. Preston McMillan is a student at College Park.
Hello. I'm here on behalf of the Committee for Human Rights in the Philippines at the University of Maryland at College Park. I'm here to talk about the lack of international programs on our campus. More specifically, we lack any educational programs for the Philippines. I would question why, but I do know why. No one here wants to think about the uncomfortable reality of investing and sending employers to companies making weapons used to kill university students in the Philippines. Hannah J. Sasissa, a 26-year-old law student, was murdered without trial since the state red-tagged her and 4 others as suspected counterinsurgents. Many of you in this room would be able to see yourselves in Hannah had you been able to meet her. Extrajudicial killings are violations of international humanitarian law, and the Philippines has used weapons made by companies like Lockheed Martin to kill thousands like Hannah. Vice ranked the University of Maryland in College Park as the most militarized campus in the United States, above explicit military schools. The reason? More students from UMD end up employed in defense than anywhere else. Given that Lockheed Martin and Northrop Grumman are listed on our website as explicit research partners, this should not be a surprise. Many more campuses like Leidos are listed as partners of various departments. This is true across USM at places like UMBC. Why does this board insist on closely tying itself to the defense industry? Further, in the Philippines and Palestine, it may be a shock, but they are under occupation. In Palestine, it's a simpler explanation as the land is controlled by a foreign government with no say from the people. The Philippines, the government is a puppet state to the U.S. Each official elected always has immense ties to the previous ones and U.S. companies. In these nations, they do not have an internationally recognized right. They do have an internationally recognized right to resist and right to self-determination. Who are we to deny them a right recognized under the Geneva Convention? Further, who are we to then help make weapons for an uncountable number of murders? Human beings have unalienable rights under international law. Marcos and Netanyahu are consistently blamed solely for these. In these wars, there are roots to people suffering which can be resolved. These wars do not just spring up out of thin air, but the governments always refuse to try to resolve the people's suffering. By divesting from military contractors, USM could bring us much closer to a just peace for the Philippines and Gaza. And by refusing, USM continues to be just as responsible as Marcos and Netanyahu for the suffering of the people and violations of their human rights. As a Persian American, I stand in solidarity with the Palestinian and Filipino peoples, and I proudly say from Palestine to the Philippines and the U.S. war machine.
Thank you, Mr. McMillan. I failed to mention the item on the agenda that this referred to. It's the program approval for the bachelor's degree in international relations. Do we have any other speakers who have registered with us? Hassan Edwin? And he will also be speaking on the same topic.
I want to address the Economic Development Committee charge and its corporate ties to weapon manufacturers. I feel obligated to give the perspective of my fellow peers from countries suffering from war profiteering, and as a Palestinian from Gaza, that will be my focus. From the beginning of 2023, leading up to October 7th, during peacetime, Israel had killed 237 Palestinians. I remember seeing it come up on the news nearly every day. Another Palestinian murdered by occupation forces. Yet my campus faced those deaths with absolute silence, proudly continuing to expand its connections with the companies who make the weapons enabling their slaughter. It was clear to me that a Palestinian life, or the life of any citizen murdered by these weapons, meant nothing. After October 7th, when 1,200 Israelis were killed, the university was quick to condemn the attack and set up actions to support the Israeli and Jewish community on campus. But time neither started nor ended on October 7th. Israel immediately began attacking civilian infrastructure, killing thousands within the first few days. And again, the university met their deaths with silence. I began to wonder, how much is a Palestinian life worth? How much is any life worth if we're profiting off the weapons taking them? 5,000, 10,000, 15,000. As the deaths accumulated, the silence turned into animosity, with those calling for a ceasefire being called terrorist sympathizers by the university. This suffering was not just statistics for me. On November 30th, less than an hour after the temporary ceasefire came to an end, 10 members of my family were killed by an Israeli airstrike, 3 of them children. That night, all my family could do was watch helplessly on the news as the bodies of our loved ones were pulled from the rubble. No words can describe the anguish witnessing such a scene, seeing your own flesh and blood buried under slabs of concrete, desperately hoping that they were still alive, yet knowing that there was no way to truly reach them or to save them. The innocent lives of those children, whose futures held so much potential, snuffed out in an instant by those very weapons my own university has financial ties to. Yet as we grieve this unspeakable loss, the campus remained silent. No statements, no outreach, no acknowledgement of our pain, just the cold indifference of an institution more concerned with profits than the lives destroyed by its own investments. An institution that would prefer us to stay silent, to smile quaintly at those defending and perpetuating the very violence that took our family members' lives, all in the name of some faux unity, as if we should simply accept being one of the lucky ones not currently living under bombardment ourselves, rather than demanding justice for those killed by the weapons my own university chooses to invest in.
Thank you, Mr. Edwin. Is Mr. Silmi or Ms. Abdallah here? Okay. Well, that concludes our public comment. Thank you.
I want to thank those individuals who took time to share their thoughts with the board. We certainly appreciate your input. And now we'd like to move on to our welcome. by President Bro.
Good morning and welcome to Bowie State University. Chancellor Perman, Chair Gooden, Board of Regents, BSU campus community, and guests. BSU is very, very pleased to host today's meeting, and I'd like to begin by congratulating all of the Board of Regents award recipients recognized earlier today. I don't know if any are still in the room, but can we give them another round of applause? They're amazing. We are nearing the end of the academic year, and it's been another successful year here at Bowie State University in providing access and affordability to about 6,400 students we welcomed at the beginning of this academic year. We have realized many achievements towards our 5-year Racing to Excellence strategic plan. That plan began back in 2019, and among the achievements, we have seen enrollment growth, enhancements to the campus infrastructure, and remarkable growth in the endowment. BSU is now ranked number 16 among the more than 100 HBCUs in the nation. And with record levels of new supporters and national partners, we achieved the fundraising target for our capital campaign 2.5 years early, raising $50 million. However, we know that more students seek to enroll at BSU, and financial need remains the #1 concern for getting students among our students, getting students enrolled and ensuring that they graduate. And so we have set the bar very high and set another goal for raising an additional $25 million before we officially close at the end of December in 2025. As you came onto the campus, you may have noticed some construction happening around here. With state support, your support, we will be opening the new Martin Luther King Communications, Arts, and Humanities building. And so I'm asking that you pull out your calendars and please mark the date. August 27th will be the ribbon cutting where we will celebrate the new facility. I know the faculty and staff and students are extremely excited, and so we'd love to see you back on the campus at that time. I want to thank the Board of Regents, the system, and our legislators for the support as we look to a bright future for Bowie State University, the oldest HBCU in the state of Maryland. And as I noted, we have been fortunate to grow the relationships with new businesses, new partners in industry, government, and throughout this nation and around the world. Joining us today to share just one example of the efforts to engage new partners, I'd like to introduce to you at this time Dr. Rose Shumba, Chair of the Department of Computer Science, to share a bit about a new initiative. And in your packets, you will see an article that appeared in the New York Times. She'll be speaking to that article. Dr. Shumba.
Thank you. Good morning to you all. Thank you so much, President Bro, for the warm introduction. On behalf of the Department of Computer Science faculty and students, I would like to thank President Bro and the cabinet members for selecting Computer Science Department to present on the work that we've been doing with the tech pipeline. This is work which was featured in the New York Times last year, and it is really, really something that's close to my heart. And I have with me here 2 students who are going to be sharing their experiences as well. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to briefly talk about how we started the tech pipeline, and then I'm going to tell you about the pillars, the main highlights of this pipeline, and how it has impacted our program. So first of all, there have been so many challenges with our students trying to get into the tech careers. And mainly you hear about imposter syndrome, intimidating selection processes, and this is evidence from research. Not only that, but I can talk of my own experience finishing my first degree and getting into a software engineering career for a top tech company. I also had the same issue. And also the conversations that I've had with all the different students who I have mentored for the past 20 plus years. It's all about, do I fit there when I get there? So with that in mind, what we thought was, what can we do to help these students? And we tried to prototype something with CVent. They approached us to say, can we come to campus? They came to campus, and we never knew this was going to be growing to be such a big network of partners. They came to campus, they met our students, got to know our students, and on that day, they hired 3 interns. So we said, oh, seems to be working. Let's try to get more partners to come to campus. So the partners increased, and we are at 40 plus partners, industry partners, and this includes startups here in the state of Maryland. So the main pillars for this tech pipeline, it includes the partnerships that we have with the industry, and I also want to at this time acknowledge the foundation office here, the BSU Foundation Office, which we closely work with when we do these partnerships. We have partnerships with companies like Adobe, Northrop & Grumman, Booz Allen, all these. I can go on and on with the list of partners that we have. So we established these partners, and we did have a memorandum of understanding of how many interns they hire each summer. And then we invited them to campus, the same model that we had for CVent. They get to know our students, they participate in guest lectures, they do capstones with our students, and they also do professional development workshops for our students. We want to make sure when the students go out there, they're ready for these careers. So we did aid in the professional development. We partner with IBM, AWS. They provide professional certifications for our students in emerging technology of areas, data science, AI, machine learning, over the winter break, so that they can then transition into internships over the summer. We also have taken our students to conferences like the Grace Hopper Conference, the NASB Conference, and we are one of the institutions participating in the Scholarship for Service program, so we also take them to those conferences, and you will hear from the students when they talk. And let me finish off by talking about the impact of this program. We have seen that our students are now getting out of Bowie with professional certifications. That means they are ready to go get those jobs out there, badges from IBM, AW Cloud certifications. Not only that, we've seen that our graduation numbers have gone up from like 13 in academic year 2021 to 39 academic year 2023. The same with our enrollment, as you can see from the slide up there. And another thing that I want to highlight is the number of interns we had this last year, the summer 2023. We placed 85 students in different organizations, companies, startups, even here in the state of Maryland, with 30 of our students in tech startups. Not only that, we had 16 work for Adobe, and I want to mention that of those 16, 6 graduated in the fall of 2023, and they got permanent positions with Adobe, and Lloyd is one of them, and you will hear from him. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And we also noticed that now the companies are paying more for our interns because they are more prepared. The wages are $23 to $52 per hour, and the average salary that you get for those who are finishing our program is about $120,000. That's all about the tech pipeline, and I'm going to invite Roxanne, who is one of our students, she is going to tell you how she has benefited from the program. And then she will be followed by Lloyd. Thank you so much.
Hello everyone. I want to first start off by saying that I'm currently a senior. I'll be graduating the spring 2024, and I'll be working with cybersecurity and infrastructure security agency this upcoming summer. But before I go on more into details, I want to tell you that when I first transferred into Bowie State University, I was not confident in my technical skills, and I felt like I couldn't land an internship. My very first internship was with Tata Consultancy Service, and that was because of the partnership they had with Bowie State University. Through there, I was able to learn some programming languages, get my feet in the door, and that gave me confidence to keep pursuing more opportunities. And with that in mind, I went and I joined the Women in Computer Science Club. I mentored other ladies. I also did some research work. And I took those two experience and opportunities that shaped me, and I went to the Grace Hopper Conference in 2022. And that's where I landed my internship with Eli Lilly. From there, I did database management work, learned some AWS, and from there, I said, you know, I want to do cybersecurity. I have no knowledge in cybersecurity, but I know that given the opportunity and the chance, I will make sure I get there. And I'm standing before you today as an SFS cybersecurity scholar. And thank you. And I remember doubting myself, thinking I'm not gonna get that scholarship. I'm not smart enough. I don't know cybersecurity. But look where I am right now. And I also wanted to mention that last year I was able to go to the SFS career fair, and I got hired right on the spot because everybody loved my experience. They loved how I went from someone who wasn't really confident in my ability to someone who's willing to take any challenge and not let that stop them from becoming who they are today. I also forgot to mention that I also participated in the IBM cybersecurity course, and I completed that last year as well. And also, because of the research grants and opportunities, I was also able to go to London and visit, see all the beautiful buildings, visit all the historical landmarks, and learn more. And I'm living proof before you guys that if you give someone a chance, they will take full advantage. So don't give up on those kind of people, because we're going to work hard and we're going to make you guys proud. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Lloyd Boladeoku. I'm a current senior at Bowie State University. As soon as I came to Bowie State as a freshman, I pretty much landed into a tech pipeline. I got an internship with Maryland Innovation Security Institute as a junior project engineer, working on various cyber projects. There, I was able to, I was there to attain a top secret clearance, be able to also represent NSA and U.S. Cyber Command in a cybersecurity competition in Estonia. And then, moving forward into my junior year, I was able to land an internship with Adobe as a security engineer. And pretty much my experience, transitioning from Missy, which is a smaller company, to a large organization like Adobe was really smooth compared to, other people that, haven't really had experience within cyber. Through Missy, I was able to obtain, various skills and various, mentors to help me, guide me to the path where I want to go. And because of that, I was able to go to Adobe and excel exceptionally to receive a full-time offer 7 months prior to me actually graduating from Bowie State University. Thank you. So additionally, also, throughout my experience at Bowie State, I was able to land get into the Mark for Cyber apprenticeship program, where I was able to obtain a CI polygraph on top of my top secret, which has been amazing, especially looking for jobs within the DMV area with, a lot of government contractors. Additionally, at Bowie State University, I was part of the Cyber Warrior program, where I was able to obtain a Security Plus, receive free training, and also take the exam for free. Additionally, at Bowie State University, I was the lead chair for the Cybersecurity Club, where we actively train for various competitions and participate in those competitions. So in reality, being here at Bowie State University and the tech pipeline has been so tremendous. It's given me all the skills, all the soft skills, and also it's, allowed me to obtain, experience and clearances to, while my job search is going on. Right now I actually have 6 job offers, a couple from Adobe, Booz Allen, Lido. Thank you.
That is wonderful. That's a great place to end. 6 job offers. I think that's a drop the mic moment. Would you give the students and Dr. Shimba another round of applause? And then finally, I would like to just thank the team at BSU for preparing for the meeting today and for yesterday. Could you give all of our BSU campus community a round of applause? And welcome. Welcome to BSU. Thank you.
Thank you, President Bro, and thanks to the students for those inspiring presentations. I feel like our data is safer in your hands. Next, we have the meeting security vignette. The part of the agenda helps the board learn about how the system's university police and safety departments keep our universities safe. These vignettes focus on a specific aspect of security at each campus. 2 years ago, Bowie State University, along with several other HBCUs across the nation, were targets of bomb threats. BSU Chief of Police Cummings has asked Captain Booker to share how the university responded to this incident. Captain Booker, the floor is yours.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Chief Cummings, and I asked Captain Booker to speak on this subject because, unfortunately, I was not here, or fortunately, I was not here during the bomb threat incident, but he has the knowledge, and he was here on the scene, and he can give you specific information concerning the incident.
Good morning to all assembled. Good morning. Dr.
Morning.
Earl. Just to give a brief overview of what occurred, on the morning, shortly before 6 a.m., police at the City of Bowie Department received a phone call with a bomb threat targeting Bowie State University. The individual identified himself as Gunner, advised he had left 6 bags of explosives in multiple classrooms around the campus. The caller stated he wanted to speak with news reporters by 12:30 or the bombs would go off. The individual also advised he was upset with the political system. At approximately 6:10 a.m., Bowie State University Police Communications was made aware of the threat by the City of Bowie Police Communications Department. I was made aware by the police administrative commanders and contacted the Vice President of Finance and Management, who oversaw the police department at that time. I then made contact with Dr. Aminta Bro and advised her of the occurrence. At 6:33, Ms. Cassandra Robinson was notified. She's in charge of media operations. Conference call between Dr. Bro, Cassandra Robinson, and myself occurred continuously as data was being received, disseminated, and directions given to persons on scene. Decision was made to temporarily close the university, and the campus was advised to shelter in place. All off-duty Bowie State University police officers were notified to respond to campus immediately, and at 7:25 hours, an emergency electronic systems alert, BEAS, was sent to the campus community. University officials and I coordinated with other law enforcement partners to initiate investigations. Police on scene conducted a full search of the campus. BSU police officers, security guards, resident assistants and directors, facility workers, and other needed staff members assisted with unlocking doors and guiding and assisting police agencies through buildings. There were no reported injuries, no devices found, or further threats to the public or campus community revealed. Preliminary investigation revealed multiple threats were made to a number of historically black colleges and universities, including Bowie State University. Federal, state, and local law enforcement partners worked together and conducted a thorough search of the BSU campus. I conceded the investigation to Maryland State Police, who had more resources and was granted lead of the investigation. Investigators from the Criminal Enforcement Division responded, along with the Office of the State Fire Marshal, Assistance was provided by officers from the Prince George's County Department, Maryland Transit Administration, Amtrak, Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, University of Maryland Police Department, Bowie City Police Department, and the Prince George's County Fire Marshal's Office. K-9 bomb dogs with several law enforcement agencies were on scene conducting sweeps throughout the campus. Police collaborated with Dr. Bro, Dr. Savia, Dr. Clements, Cassandra Robinson, and other administrative leaders from the Bowie State University as the investigation ensued. All areas of the university had been swept with no devices found by 12 p.m. A press conference was held on the exterior of the ELLC building, led by Elena Russo, Officer of the Media Communications, Acting Director, Maryland State Police. At approximately 1:30, the shelter in place was ordered lifted, and teleworking continued. Classes remained virtually for the remainder of the day. Additional information from the FBI as of February 1, 2022, which is the day that occurred. 17 bomb threats had occurred in the past 48 hours. The call type was a voice over internet protocol, VoIP. Number indicates call originated to New York, from New York, and had not yet been confirmed. There were no devices found at any HBCU at that time. The FBI New Orleans office was leading the national investigation. The U.S. Attorney's Office was also involved in the investigation. The incident had been recognized as the domestic terrorism incident. DHS, FBI, state, local, and other agencies were working collaboratively on the case. Thank you. I'm open to any questions or concerns.
Did you learn anything as you went through this exercise that might be beneficial to any of the other campuses?
We had a few takeaways.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. One of the takeaways that we had was, actually I have a list. We needed to improve our emergency operations center. We needed more bomb threat training, which we have since had. In our emergency operations center, we were lacking a lot of things, and we enumerated what those things are. And at this point, we are in the process of correcting that. We have made great strides with doing so. One of the great things is that we had collaborative partners to work with us, and it was a smooth transition from Bowie State University starting the investigation and Maryland State Police taking over with their resources. Another great aspect was the communication between myself, Dr. Bro, and media operations at the time, because we were able to get excellent direction on where Dr. Bro wanted us to go, and the communication went out very, very smoothly. Those were the biggest takeaways. We were aware that this was happening across the nation with other HBCUs, so I was also in contact with the chiefs of police of those HBCUs who had experienced it before us, which gave us great guidance on how we should respond to certain things, so we weren't kind of reinventing the wheel as this was going along.
Any other questions? Well, seeing none, thank you for coming in and sharing with us.
Thank you for your time, ma'am.
All right. We'll now hear from the Chancellor's report.
Good morning. Thank you, Chair Gooden. I promise to go as quickly as I can this morning, so I encourage you to read my full report. I'm going to certainly leave some important items out, items that don't deserve my omission. Let me start with our host today, Bowie State University, and just a few of its remarkable students, in addition to what we saw this morning. Biology major Dalia Brown won first place at the Emerging Researchers National Conference in D.C. for her work on medicinal plants. Dalia is part of a multi-university research team that works under the guidance of Dr. Ann Osano, whom we just honored this morning as one of our 2024 Faculty Award winners. You see, this is that great full circle moment that proves the power of our teaching. Honored faculty, honored student. Meanwhile, a team of 4 Bowie State business students, fellows of the Center for Financial Advancement, won $40,000 in the Experian Pitch Competition for an app that helps students pay off their college loans within 5 years of graduation. That's got to be a top download. Dr. Bro, I know you were delighted to be Representative Hoyer's guest at President Biden's State of the Union address last month. Not everybody gets to do that. When the congressman invited you, he invoked your dedication to combating our nation's mental health crisis. And so it's fitting that Bowie State is now the 3rd United States HBCU to offer a PhD in counselor education and supervision. Madam President Bro, congratulations for all of that. Let me broaden my scope to the university system writ large. The U.S. News graduate rankings are out, and as always, our system shines. The University of Maryland College Park has more than 40 top 25 rankings in programs and specialties. College of Education, School of Public Health climbed into the top 25 overall. UMB was well represented among top 25 programs. The School of Nursing, again ranked in the top 10 among publics, moved up in every ranked category. UMBC, recognized for a diversity of programs, statistics, fine arts, physics, public affairs, engineering, and in fact, every eligible system university got a recognition. Education at Frostburg, social work at Salisbury, computer science at Bowie State and Towson, rehab counseling at Coppin State and UMES. The clinical law program at the University of Baltimore is ranked 5th nationwide. So now let me talk about how we're putting that excellence to work. Last week, we formalized a historic partnership with the Maryland Department of Public Safety and Correctional Services, establishing a framework that facilitates prison education programs at our system universities and all Maryland correctional facilities. We're the first higher education system in the nation to do this. The point, of course, isn't only to grow learning opportunities, degree opportunities for incarcerated students, but ultimately to get the dividend, to strengthen the families and communities that they return to. I want to thank the University of Baltimore and Bowie State for showing us the way as a system. And I thank Regent Wood, Regent Herr, and Senior Vice Chancellor Rinn for their leadership in getting this done. Another way we're putting our knowledge to work, the system has joined the Maryland Tough, Baltimore Strong Alliance to help recovery efforts following the tragic and devastating Key Bridge collapse. I've told our state and city leaders personally that the system is eager to contribute our scholarly expertise in areas of critical need and to provide education, reskilling, and career services to Port of Baltimore employees who may be out of work for a while. It's our obligation, but we're also privileged to contribute in times of challenge. Another system-wide effort, as we prepare for the upcoming election, we're meeting the foundational obligation of the American Academy, namely to educate for democracy. The USM is one of 14 applicants nationwide to win funding as part of the Help America Vote College program. With money from the U.S. Election Assistance Commission, our universities will pay students to be trained as election judges. And I thank College Park for taking the lead in developing the training modules. In this way, we'll support transparency and confidence in the 2024 election. We'll promote voting equity by placing poll workers in precincts without easy access to election judges. And we'll start our students on a lifelong path of engaged citizenship. I want to thank Associate Vice Chancellor Nancy Shapiro for her leadership in this work. And while I'm on civic engagement, it was gratifying to see UBALT's Next Gen Leaders program get so much attention for its work to develop and replenish our public servant workforce. In less than 2 years, UBALT has placed more than 200 students in paid internships or fellowships with the state, the city, and municipalities across Maryland. Congratulations, Provost Mueller. Coppin State has the same idea, partnering with the City of Baltimore to cultivate the next generation of public servants. The HBCU Fellowship Program provides the city with diverse talent, provides students with career opportunities, on-the-job training, coaching, mentoring. Salute to you, President Jenkins. From local to global, at UMB, a 3-year education and clinical care agreement with the University of Rwanda School of Dentistry will focus on patients born with cleft lip and cleft palate, conditions that untreated can lead to malnutrition and starvation. The aim is to ensure that over 5,000 Rwandans awaiting treatment can receive life-saving care. The partnership involves global nonprofit Operation Smile, whose co-founder is UMB alumnus Dr. Billy McGee. Congratulations, President Gerald. I have a strong opinion about why we do work internationally, why we send our students internationally, and I'm not the first to say this. Of all the kind of diplomacy we do, that's the best way. UMCES is leading a multi-university research group that's been awarded an NSF grant to address salt contamination of water supplies in tidal rivers. You can immediately see that that kind of contamination threatens drinking water for billions of people around the world. And I'll note that the project's PI, Dr. Ming Lee, was just named a Fulbright Scholar. He'll work with Portuguese scientists to develop early warning systems for harmful algal blooms in coastal waters. One more thing about UMCES. Last night, some of our colleagues couldn't be with us because they were awarding a special distinction to Senator Cardin. They awarded him the Truett Environmental Award, 7th time in UMCES' 100-year history that they've awarded somebody with this. And Bill Dennison, congratulations on doing that on behalf of all of us. College Park has launched the Artificial Intelligence Interdisciplinary Institute. It's fitting for a university with an AI program that's ranked 15th. The Institute is going to support collaborative faculty research and experiential learning in AI, with a focus on developing responsible AI technology and ethical AI leaders. And a $27 million gift to the University of Maryland from Michael and Eugenia Brin will fund math research and outreach. It's the largest ever gift to the math department and the 4th largest gift from an individual to the university. So congratulations, President Pines. At UMBC, there's something of a space race going on. In February, a 15-year R&D journey culminated with the launch of HARP-2 as part of NASA's space mission. The UMBC-designed instrument has been sending data back to Earth, analyzing aerosol particles and clouds as a means of illuminating air quality, climate, and climate change. And now, UMBC tells us that it's going to the moon. Its Lunar Environmental Monitoring Station will be deployed as part of NASA's Artemis III lunar landing mission, humankind's first return to the moon's surface in 50-plus years. Valerie, I hope you send the instrument off well. Congratulations. Not to be outdone, Salisbury also has its eyes on the final frontier. Salisbury inked a landmark partnership with NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center. The SU Space ACT arrangement will offer hands-on experiences for students at NASA's Wallops Flight Facility, expand the agency's presence on campus, and help develop the state's aerospace workforce. So congratulations, President LaPree. At Towson University, many of us took part in the installation of President Mark Ginsburg as the 15th senior leader of TU. It was a lovely ceremony, truly a great day to be a Tiger. And days before the inauguration, President Ginsburg helped open the Sandra R. Berman Center for Humanity, Tolerance, and Holocaust Education. It's the only Holocaust education center in Maryland, and it's designed for people of all ages, all backgrounds. The center will share the lessons of history and the Holocaust and offer academic programs in civil and human rights. Congratulations on your inauguration, Mark. Congratulations on this work. An important space on Frostburg's campus was dedicated last week by Governor Moore and Lieutenant Governor Miller. They were on hand for the official opening of Frostburg's newest building. It's the $82 million Education and Health Science Center. That's a state-of-the-art facility for students filling critical workforce gaps in Maryland's classrooms, clinics, and hospitals. Thank you, Vice President D'Elia. And part of UMES's bid to develop the next generation of aviation professionals, what is it doing? It's sharing in a $13.5 million collection of FAA grants to attract and train students for careers as pilots, engineers, maintenance technicians, drone operators. Congratulations, President Anderson. The NSA has validated UMGC as a National Center of Academic Excellence for its cybersecurity program. The validation of UMGC's Masters in Cybersecurity Technology is the university's second cyber master's program to win the coveted distinction. So congratulations, Senior VP Sergey. And at our regional centers, the USM at Hagerstown was named the Small Business of the Year by the Washington County Chamber of Commerce. The importance of that is that honor proves the center's extraordinary value to the region as an anchor, a partner, a convener, a critical economic and workforce developer. Thank you, Jacob Ashby. Programs are growing at the USM at Southern Maryland. This fall, Bowie State begins offering a Master's in Special Education at the center. With the Kennedy Krieger Institute now co-located at USMSM, BSU students will be able to work with the Institute's teachers, staffs, and students to advance special education practice and serve Southern Maryland families. A nice co-location. I know everyone hates the word, but this is what synergy looks like when we have one of our higher ed institutions partnering with one of our distinguished medical institutions. Thank you, Dr. Abel. And the universities at Shady Grove just got a campaign's worth of exposure with a 30-minute feature on an Amazon TV show called The College Tour. 10 USG students tell their stories and talk about the intimacy of the USG community, its incredible diversity, and USG's laser focus on career readiness and job placement. If you haven't watched it yet, you absolutely should. Congratulations, Dr. Kademian. Now let me switch gears and acknowledge the just ended legislative session. Every year I say it was a busy one. Every year I'm telling you the truth. But this year, with 3,480 bills filed, with 280 affecting the system directly, with our people testifying at nearly 50, I would call that overdrive. And I thank everybody around here, all the university staff, our presidents, regents, everybody who showed their skill, their stamina, and the strength of their collaboration with one another. Special thanks to Vice Chancellor Susan Lawrence, newly arrived, but right in there, and her whole team, our governmental affairs folks from each of the campuses, for guiding us through a hectic 90 days with a lot of grace and a lot of good humor, all of it held intact. Facing a deficit, we know there are tough times ahead. State facing that deficit, it impacts us, but it's in times of challenge especially that we value the goodwill and the good faith of our leaders and the trust they've placed in us to do the work that fuels Maryland's growth, prosperity, and strength. I have one final item before I cede the podium. Chair Gooden mentioned in opening comments that she'll speak to the Title IX work groups that this board is standing up. I too want to comment on this impetus, this matter of revelations of Title IX misconduct at UMBC. I want everybody here and everybody listening in to know how seriously the system and the board take the findings of the Department of Justice, and how deeply sorry we are for the pain suffered by too many students for too long. I want you to know that we will be accountable for strengthening our policies and our processes going forward, and we'll work every day to prevent the misconduct that happened at UMBC from ever happening again at any university within the system. I have the partnership and the leadership of the presidents in saying that. Without question, what happened at UMBC harmed students. It caused damage we can't undo. What we can do is to do better. So I am grateful, and I say this publicly, for the leadership of President Shears Ashby, who recognized the gravity of this situation as soon as she arrived at UMBC. From day one, she's coordinated closely with the system and the board. She's been making needed changes in UMBC's structures, policies, personnel, and I am confident that she and her team will do everything in their power to renew and affirm UMBC's culture of care and accountability, to regain the trust of the university students and live up to UMBC's core values. Every student has the right to learn in an environment free from abuse, harassment, and discrimination. So our work isn't done until all students can say that we've met that standard. Madam Chair, this concludes my report.
Thank you, Chancellor. Any questions for the Chancellor? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to the Council of University System Staff. Dr. Patricio.
Chair Gooden, Chancellor Perman, Board of Regents, USM Presidents, good morning. I'd like to thank President Bro and all the staff and faculty of Bowie State University for their wonderful hospitality and the students who shared their musical talents with us yesterday evening. It was a lovely performance. In preparation for today's meeting, I shared with you all the written report on the work of CUS since our last meeting, from which I will share a few highlights. We participated in Advocacy Advocacy Day during the legislative session in Annapolis, Maryland, our first full in-person day since the pandemic began. I want to thank the USM Office of Government Relations for their support to make the day a success. We have some good lessons learned from the day and hope to implement those next year. The Shared Governance Survey process, which is our annual process of collecting feedback from those engaged in shared governance on our campuses, has concluded. The report attached to this report has since been updated, and the updated version can be reached using the link, the hyperlink I provided in my report. We received a 68% response rate, up from last year. And the findings generally indicate that shared governance is functioning on most of our campuses. Support of supervisors and the institution for staff to participate in shared governance remains strong, and we are grateful for that. The concerns staff raised on the survey were similar to years past, though were higher in the percentage of dissatisfaction. These areas involved generally around communication from leadership and administration and a dearth of input from staff in decision-making. This could mean that institutional leadership is involving their staff senates less in shared governance processes in years past. The individual USM reports provide additional details on these findings and have been shared with Chancellor Perman and the USM presidents. I would be happy to share any individual campus reports upon request. With the assistance of our fearless USM presidents, we have launched the first system-wide faculty staff shared governance awareness survey. This survey is different from the one I just mentioned in that it seeks to understand whether faculty and staff not involved in shared governance are aware of it on their campuses and/or at the USM level. And if they are aware of this process, the survey asks for their views on the strengths of shared governance and opportunities for growth. The due date for the survey is May 10th. I'm grateful for the collaboration of Dr. Heather Haverback and CUSIF, the support of Chancellor Perman, and especially the USM presidents for their support in the distribution of the survey to faculty and non-bargaining staff. UMGC and Frostburg have already sent out the survey, and responses from those campuses are rolling in. I look forward to seeing the responses continue and hope to share findings with you at the June Board of Regents meeting. The Board of Regents staff award process for CUS is almost finished. The selection committee has completed its review, and in the coming weeks, you will receive my proposal to grant this award. We are appreciative of everyone's nominations in this process. I'd specifically like to acknowledge Denise Ehrman and Brian Hara, both of Towson, for their leadership in the selection process and to the selection committee for their review. We're excited to see movement in our request to modify the tuition remission policy to prohibit the charging of duplicative student fees to staff and faculty who take courses at their home institutions. We will be joined by USM representatives at our May meeting to review the proposed language for the policy change and hope that you will see this come no later than the June meeting. Thank you to the staff of the USM who have helped us move this endeavor forward. We are grateful. As the 23-24 CUS cycle nears the end, our May meeting will include a nominating process for our executive committee, which includes the positions of chair, vice chair, and co-secretaries. We will hold this vote at our June 18th meeting. Thank you for your time and attention today. I'm happy to take any questions you may have. Thank you.
Seeing none. Thank you, Dr. Patricio. We'll now have the Council of University System Presidents. Dr. Bro.
Good morning again. CUS last met on March 4th and April 8th, and since the last Board of Regents meeting. At the March 4th meeting, Associate Vice Chancellor Clark updated the Council on legislative session activities and progress. And he shared with us, and you've already heard from the Chancellor about the number of bills that we're going through during this legislative session. He shared that over 3,400 bills were introduced and about 275 had direct impact on higher education. Senior Vice Chancellor Herbst provided an update on progress being made with consolidated collective bargaining negotiations, and she also briefed the Council on the proposed exempt and non-exempt salary structure adjustments conducted by USM Classification and Compensation Committee. The Council also discussed Ombud services and creative ways to expand this service on smaller campuses. The April 8th meeting started with reflections on President Ginsburg's inauguration, and I want to once again, on behalf of CUSP and all who were in attendance, having this wonderful, wonderful time celebrating you. Congratulations once again, President Ginsburg. It was just a fantastic day. We wish you and your campus all the very best. There was then discussion about the impact of FAFSA on students. The president shared strategies to assist students, which included provisional packaging and increased communication through social media, information sessions, and webinars. There was a recognition of the hard work that financial aid and other staff are doing to assist students on each and every one of our campuses. Vice Chancellor Skolnick then noted that there would be tuition policy guidance sent out regarding mandatory fees for employees. And then CUSP also discussed shared governance, specifically as it pertains to meet and confer processes. Vice Chancellor Lawrence provided an update on the legislative session and the agreement on the budget. And then Chancellor Perman and Vice Chancellor Herbst discussed the USM budget, and Associate Vice Chancellor Skolnick discussed collective bargaining. Senior Vice Chancellor Wren presented on the work underway on pathways and credentials relative to the strategic plan. And she noted that a presentation will be shared with the board at the June meeting. This concludes my report, and again, let me wish our campuses the very best as we conclude another academic year and celebrate the soon-to-be graduates. All the best, my colleagues, and that concludes my report.
Thank you. Any questions for Dr. Brown? Seeing none, we'll move on to the University System of Maryland Student Council. Ms. Gambier.
Good morning, Chair Gooden, Chancellor Perman, the Board of Regents, and University Presidents. Thank you so much, President Burrow, for hosting us. In March, we evaluated and deliberated on 206 applications for the Board of Regents Student Excellence Scholarships. The 12 students were selected were approved at the Education Policy and Student Life meeting. And if approved by the Board of Regents today, notifications to presidents and winners will be made within the next week. We also identified some finalists for each category who we thought were extremely competitive, and we'll be sharing the names of those individuals as well. Last week, we had our April general meeting, and we were very excited that Chancellor Perman was able to join us. We are very grateful for your time, Chancellor Perman, and the representatives appreciated the opportunity to share their perspective with you. The Council also had its second discussion about two very important resolutions. The first one, calling for USM institutions to appropriately address international graduate student housing needs, received some last-minute feedback that the Council agreed was important to incorporate. So in order to ensure clarity on the language, we agreed to hold off on voting at the meeting until the updated version was circulated to the Council within the next week. Voting for that resolution will take place via email soon, and I look forward to sharing those results. The second resolution called for USM institutions to divest from and commit to not investing in arms-producing companies. After a brief discussion where representatives shared both support and concerns received from their campuses, we proceeded to vote at the meeting. It received 4 votes in favor, 4 opposed, and 1 abstention. This resolution did not pass and will not be moving forward for now. Additionally, the representatives received information about upcoming USMSC elections that will take place in May. The shared governance survey has also been distributed to the Council. Submissions were received, and a summary will be shared in my next report to the Board of Regents and Chancellor's Council. Finally, after a few adjustments, the USM Student Speaker Forum will be taking place at the University of Maryland College Park on April 23rd, so this coming Tuesday. This event will showcase presentations from 5 students that celebrate creative and diverse perspectives across our system, and we are very excited to share how that goes. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And any questions for Ms. Gambier? Seeing none, we'll move on to the Council of University System Faculty, Dr. Haverbeck.
Good morning, Chair Gooden, Chancellor Perman, Board of Regents, and University Presidents. Thank you so much for having me this morning. President Brough, thank you so much for having us last night. What a wonderful evening of music and food and fun. And welcome President Ginsburg to Towson. We are all thrilled to have you. When we last met, the legislative session was in full swing, and CUSF had about 10 representatives at the Annapolis Day. And we were able to meet with legislators and work with, speak with people and talk about USM. Much of my report, I must say, was already given by Cuss, so I'm going to kind of gloss over a few areas that you've already heard about and maybe add in some other things. Over the past 2 months, we have been very busy. Since my last report, CUSF and the XCOM have both met twice. The CUSF General Body meeting was held virtually on February 23rd, and we also met on March 27th. I want to thank you, Senior Vice Chancellor for Academic and Student Affairs, Allison Rinn, and Kelsey Beckett for joining us in these meetings and sharing USM updates and also answering any questions that we had. One highlight of our February meeting was having President Jenkins come and give us updates and highlights from Coppin State University. Thank you for joining us. At our March meeting, Dr. Candace Caraco shared updates and asked for feedback on the art bylaw changes in transfer policies. The Legislative Affairs Committee discussed the changes to bylaws, and we will be sending Dr. Caraco our feedback after the next general meeting. Dr. Nancy O'Neill also discussed the Kirwan Center with us and listened to ideas and brainstormed ideas for the future of the center. Thank you so much to both of you for joining us. As Dr. Patricio mentioned from CUS, we have the survey out, and we are very excited to see what the information is that we get back regarding shared governance. I have to say that it's been a really big joy this year being able to work with CUS so closely and to be able to do some things together that we can both, and all of us can actually render the information from them and maybe change things or make things better. In this season of surveys, the Shared Governance Survey for faculty has gone out to the Senate chairs and their XCOM, and that has a due date of May 1st, so I will be presenting those results at the June meeting. The Rules Committee, as I've been talking about, shared the first read to the CUSF Constitution. We will be voting on this over the next 2 meetings, and then it will go through the proper channels to be approved and will eventually make its way to you. The Education Policy Committee is continuing their work on the AI conference, incorporating generative AI into learning experiences, a virtual showcase. This will take place via Zoom on April the 26th. And the event is being organized by the Kirwan Center, CUSF, Maryland Online, and Montgomery College. So you really have a lot of groups working together, which is always exciting to see. The feedback and the registration were so high that they're actually hoping to have another webinar next year, but they are also going to share this across faculty and across the state after, and it will be shared online so people can sign up and see what happened if they were not able to be in attendance. The Faculty Concerns Committee brought forth a white paper on mental health to be reviewed and supported by the CUSF XCOM, and it will be going to the General Board. The Research Committee is currently focusing on 3 topics: intercampus research portals, ways in which welcoming environment for foreign-born researchers can be created, and ways to streamline IACUC, which is the protocol and the group that works with research with animals, so ways to streamline that approval process. We will be having our Senate Chair meeting next Tuesday, and then on Thursday we will be heading to Salisbury to have our first on-campus meeting since COVID. I would like to thank everybody at Salisbury who is having us, President LaPree and Dr. Deneen Long-White, and this takes a lot of work, especially after we haven't done it for a while, but it's another first post-COVID that we'll be excited to celebrate. So thank you all for having us, and I'm open to any questions.
Seeing no questions, thank you, Dr. Haberbeck.
Thank you.
We'll now move on to the consent agenda. Decisions regarding which items to include on the consent agenda were made by me and the committee chairs. However, any regent may request that an item be removed from the consent agenda for separate review and discussion. Before I move approval of the consent agenda, I ask if there are any items that any regent would like removed from the consent agenda for separate review and discussion. Yes.
Make a note here. On the February 16th closed session, where it says item 4, University of Maryland College Park Energy Service Contract, I was not there. I didn't approve it. In fact, Regent Fishkin said that I voted against it in the Finance Committee, but it's represented incorrectly that I voted for it.
Okay. Yeah, we'll get that corrected. Denise, do you have that for the record? Any other changes or clarifications? Okay, hearing none, I will move that all agenda continue. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Next item is committee reports, and we'll start with Regent Fish and the Finance Committee. She will report on the 25 schedule of tuition and mandatory fees and on the USM enrollment projections. Regent Fish.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good morning, everyone. Annually, the board reviews and we evaluate the proposed tuition and fees rate adjustments from each of our institutions. And I want to note that the system remains committed to our responsibility of balancing affordability for students and families with what is needed to improve and sustain our institutions. So I will go ahead and start with undergraduate rates for fiscal year 2025. A modest increase of up to 2% in tuition is recommended for resident, undergraduate, full, and part-time students. The proposed 2% tuition increase falls below the year-over-year rise in both the U.S. Consumer Price Index at 3.4% and the Higher Education Price Index at 4%. And this shows our commitment to maintaining affordability in wake of these rising costs. So for all institutions, resident, undergraduate, full-time total costs, so that's tuition plus mandatory fees, will not exceed 4.2% year over year. I'm going to now move to tuition rates for non-resident students, and that will increase by no more than 5%. And then graduate rates, both full-time and part-time tuition rates for graduate students will not exceed 5%, with most of our institutions keeping increases well below this threshold on a year-over-year basis. And then mandatory fees, these are also included in this schedule. These fees support services and activities that are not primarily funded by either tuition revenue or state general funds. So some examples of what these fees would go towards include student unions, recreation centers, and athletics. The average fee increase is 4.2%. The increase in fees can be attributed to the recent rise in both employee wages as well as benefits and just general operational increase in expenses as a result of inflation. I do want to note that per board policy, institutional leadership must engage with student groups to discuss and review proposed fee adjustments and changes to existing fees. A summary of that student engagement process conducted by each of our institutions is also included in your materials. And with that, I will pause and ask if there are any questions. Seeing none and hearing none, I make a motion to move. Is there a second?
Second.
Any other questions or discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you.
Madam Chair, can I just make an observation, I think? First of all, I would like to just commend the fact that despite the 2% reduction in state funding, that we're able to maintain the tuition at the level it is. But having said that, I'd like to offer maybe a challenge to our presidents as it relates to the 2026 budgeting process. And I do that by sharing an observation that recently when I attended the HEB conference, I was in a session, and I don't remember whether it was part of a presentation or whether it was somebody from the session making a comment, but they stood up and they said that Penn State University in Pennsylvania has had 0% tuition increases for 5 straight years. Now, obviously, that's a stunning thing to hear. And my observation or my challenge would be as we build, future budgets with the idea that accessibility and affordability is critical to our mission statement, that we don't accept that 2% is necessarily okay. I mean, if there's a way to reduce that, would be really important as it relates to the issues that we're all facing. The society's questioning the value, all of the things that we're looking at. So I would just challenge you to when you're building your budgets, to really look at, can we do better, basically.
Chair, quick one comment. Have we ever, in our history of USM, reduced the fee?
No, but during COVID, we had no.
No, I know that, but I'm saying reduce means lower the fee now.
Not that I'm aware of. Vice Chancellor Herbst, is she here? Yes, Ellen, do you know of any period where we reduced tuition and fees?
I can only comment on the period I'm personally aware of, and the only thing I can say is, of course, during COVID, the board voted to not allow any increase, but I'm not aware of any increases. I don't know if any of the presidents who've been here longer than I have know of that.
I don't recall it.
If I might, our tuition is a partnership with the state. And we're very grateful to the state for their historic and generous support. But we rely on that support to keep the rates and the increases of the rates where they are. And so that's something we look at each year.
Any other thoughts or comments? I'll turn it back over to you, Madam Chair.
All right, so we'll go and move and transition to, if you will, the enrollment projections for fiscal year 2025 through 2034. So these are 10-year enrollment projections. And these are presented annually to the board for approval, and this is done to ensure transparency and also that there is alignment with the goals of the university system. And with that, I will turn it over to the Chancellor.
Well, I wanted to comment. Perhaps I'll get up to the podium because we have a bit of a report for you. Chair Fish has raised the issue of enrollments going forward over 10 years, and there is the matter of FAFSA, which is something that has the potential to affect enrollment. So I thought that before we turn to Associate Vice Chancellor Muntz, who is our enrollment expert, thought it might be useful to give a little background on the new FAFSA and the problems with its rollout and the potential implications, which Shad will illumine us on. So the free application for federal student aid, FAFSA, was created about 3 decades ago to open access to billions of dollars in grants and loans to students with financial need. Not just money from the federal government, but from states and private organizations as well. And our universities use all of these data and then assemble their own aid packages covering as much remaining financial need as they can. The problem with the original FAFSA was that it was too complex. So Congress mandated an overhaul, reducing the questions from over 100 to 30. The new application also adjusted the formula used to determine aid eligibility. And that is a change that means more students qualify for federal Pell Grants and more students qualify for the maximum amount allowable. So this is great news. The form should be a lot easier to fill out, and if you do fill it out, you're more likely to get more money. But the problems with the new FAFSA started last fall when its launch was delayed by months. And when it did launch, technical glitches made it difficult to access and to complete. Students whose parents don't have a Social Security number were shut out completely. Of all the problems the U.S. Department of Education has identified, numbering in the dozens, yes, about half have now been resolved. But all those glitches mean a high rejection rate, which means the students have to go back, make corrections, resubmit, and that's a process that was made even slower by the problematic rollout. While data started arriving at universities about a month ago, there were errors not only from the student and family side, but there were errors that plagued the federal side too. Officials say that about 30% of the 7 million FAFSA records they've already sent to colleges, have errors in them. So you can imagine there's an immense amount of pressure on our financial aid offices. And let me take a moment to thank everyone in those offices. Everybody knows how hard they've been working to solve problems that they didn't cause. And we've seen their incredible dedication to our students and their families and to getting it right, and I hope the presidents will transmit that for me. To alleviate some of the pressure on them, we've pushed back the deadline by which students must commit to attend one of our universities. So our decision day is now May 15th versus May 1, and universities have flexibility to push it back further. Meanwhile, MHEC has said that students who completed their forms by this past Monday should know by May 1st whether they'll qualify for state aid. And I do want to add here that, yes, progress is being made. The government is now processing new applications within the typical turnaround window, which is only 1 to 3 days. Still, you can imagine that everything I said makes Mr. Muntz's job of projecting enrollment a bit more challenging. And it's not just that the decision deadlines are extended, it's that all the delays and glitches have taken a huge toll on how many students actually complete the form in the first place. It's been a killer in that regard, and I've opined on it in Maryland Matters in the past month. As of a week ago, the number of high school seniors nationwide who completed the FAFSA was down 38% year over year. Maryland's drop, about the same. 38% fewer potential students completing the FAFSA. So, of course, a concern is that enrollment could drop alongside FAFSA completions. Not a comparable drop, but a dip that could puncture our post-pandemic rebound. Even more concerning is that we could see drops where we can least afford them. If you get inside that 38%, where there's particular dropping is among low-income students, first-generation students, underrepresented students, in high minority and high poverty schools across the country, completions are down 44%. Just the thing we all wanted to avoid by trying to help with money. That's the irony, that the changes made to FAFSA were made specifically to promote access, to promote inclusion. But you got to get it right. So what are we doing about it? Well, because of our leaders here, there's a lot of one-on-one communication going on with prospective and returning students and their families. People are getting called. People are getting contacted. There's bulk communication, phone banks, texting campaigns, email blasts. Universities are holding regular webinars and chats to answer questions. They're partnering with academic advisors at the high schools so they too can remind students to fill out the form and register. I've heard of even staging competitions with prizes where a residence hall can compete against others for who completes the most applications. Some universities sent out merit and athletic awards earlier than usual so that at least there's some money on the table. Some are looking at FAFSA data and without estimating awards, at least telling students that it looks like they'll qualify for state aid, trying to provide hope. And finally, where possible, we're planning to be flexible, giving students and families some time to review their aid package before asking them to make a commitment. So there's a mix of all of this going on. It's a big decision, and we're acting like it's a big decision for families. And I should point out that our partners are joining in the FAFSA push. Both the State Superintendent of Schools and the MHEC Secretary have asked all Maryland school districts to take 30 minutes this week. It's the National FAFSA Week of Action to help students with their FAFSA submission. So that's the picture, and now let's hear about the numbers from Mr. Munz.
Thanks, Chancellor. And let me put this in context, if I can, the enrollment forecasts and projections for the board. So the Chancellor, together with the presidents, makes this recommendation to us, to the board. And these projections take into account not only the current situation in higher education, but also from a planning standpoint and looking out beyond, if you will, the immediate year or 2 years. So with that, Chad.
So that you mentioned 38% drop in the FAFSA application at this point. So does the budget incorporate, there may be certain percentage that may not go for this year in the applied to the universities?
So Chad and Candace are actually going to, we'll address that. So perfect lead-in.
Perfect timing.
Thank you, Chancellor. Thank you, Chair Fish. And thank you for the opportunity to come and set the context for what we're seeing with the enrollment projections. My area is decision support. I try to find and provide the information you need to make your decisions. So hopefully today I'll be able to answer some of those questions or at least provide the context for you to make that decision. I appreciate the campuses. This is an ongoing look at the data. It's financial aid, it's enrollment management, it's admissions, it's institutional research. We even work with our budget folks to fully understand what this is. This is a 4-month-long process that we began in December, and then we convene work groups with your campuses to be able to share best practices. And in that, the campuses are offering ideas, they're offering those same strategies, models that are going on, and we're all coming together. And then in this past week, I even asked again, what is those estimates? So this is ongoing conversation. Candace is also working with the enrollment management folks to get the information, and then I'm trying to interpret that to see what the impact could be. So with that overview, what I'll say first is I'll give an overview of what are the enrollment projections and why they're important. Then we will get into this year's projections, and then finally I'll put that context together of what this means. Okay, so The purpose of the enrollment projections is in board policy, it calls all institutions to have a well-coordinated enrollment plan that makes possible and makes the short-term, mid-term, and long-term plans of the university. It includes all the budgetary considerations, how many students are going to be served, how we serve the clients, and meet the mission of each institution. This process also informs MHEC in their enrollment projection process, and as mentioned, it is a board policy action item every year. The goal for our institutions is over a 3-year period to be within a 3% average, the projection and the actual, and we've been meeting that as a system for a number of years now. So how this relates together and the implications to Regent Hassan's question, at the bottom is the enrollment projections today, April 19th. You heard the tuition and fee recommendations. So our campuses, when they put together this plan, and we started in December, they're looking at how many students are being served, what are the likely impacts, what's the margin of error, how does that help set tuition and fees, the demand in our auxiliary services. Then we also use the long-term full-time equivalent based on our credit hours generated, how many students, how many classes, how many instructors we need, what size of campus do we need, and that information, the long-term numbers, feed our our capital budgets. And in fact, if pending approval of these Board of Regents projections today, my colleagues at the Department of Budget and Management are very interested in this as they're looking forward to the capital planning that happens this summer. Then in the fall, per policy, I come back and give that update. What worked, where are we, and what's the outlook? All this information feeds into the audited financial statements, and in about 6 months from now, we will work with our bond agencies and credit agencies to talk about our enrollment plans and the accuracy and what it looks like for the future. So it's very important. It's all interconnected, and policy connects this very well for us. So what does the projections look like? Well, we exceeded our projections this past year by a couple thousand students, largely because of the gains at UMGC with some great new initiatives and opportunities. So last year we projected about 164,000. We ended with 166,685, if I remember correctly, and we're looking to move up to 168,000 for 2024. And over the 10-year projection, we're moving from last year we thought we'd be around 178,000, moving up to 190,000. I might have gotten the first numbers, might have mixed them up a minute. So I think we projected for 162,000, got to 164. Thank you. So I want to make sure I got that right. So we're looking for a couple thousand increase in this fall 2024. The reason why the red line, which is this year's projection, is steeper is based on the success UMGC has had over the last couple of years. So they were, in the last couple of projections, thinking about a 1% increase annually, and with the success, they've moved it up to about a 2% increase. The rest of our institutions, the other 10 combined, are following the same projection, and we're meeting the same enrollment plan as last year. So what is, in this context, you're hearing me talk about percentages. 168,000 students, plus or minus 3% is about 5,000 students. UMGC is a size of about 60,000 students, so when they move from a 1% per year to a 2% per year, we're getting 1,200 more students annually, and that explains that 13,000 increase over the long term. So our growth, I mentioned UMGC is about 57% of our growth over the next 10 years. The next largest part of our growth is Bowie, Coppin, UMES, and UBALT, and that's about 24%. And their plans are small incremental growth, manageable over the next 10 years, followed by Salisbury and Towson would combine for about 15%, and then UMBC and Frostburg is about 4% of our total growth of the next 10 years. You'll note that UMB and College Park essentially are managing about the same size institution over the next 10 years, plus or minus a few hundred students in each year. So what does the accuracy look like? So the shaded portion and the red line on the left is our actual enrollment. The dots are every enrollment projection we've had over the last 10 years. The darker the square, the more recent the projection, with the most recent projection noted as the dotted line, taking a steeper curve or steeper ascent, as I mentioned. The red shaded area is that plus or minus 3%. As you can see, our enrollment projections have begun getting narrower over the last few years, such that our shaded area for plus or minus 3% is encompassing multiple projections. As we look forward, we'll get about 5 or 6 projections moving forward. Our campuses have been very accurate and very careful with their projections, and the accuracy, I think, is displayed here and meets board policy. So with that, plus or minus 5,000 students, what do I think the FAFSA interaction would be for our campuses? So based on the feedback we received from the campuses, we think it could be anywhere from 0%, because of the hard work. The Chancellor mentioned all the great action that is happening, and I don't want to leave this thinking that there's not a lot of positive activity and successful activity happening at the campuses. Many campuses said, we are standing by our projections. We believe we can make them as they are, but in good faith, if you wanted a range, we'll help you, frame that. But they believe their actions will be satisfactory. So from 0% to about 2% in aggregate, up to about 3,000 total students could be the impact of the FAFSA complications across all 11 universities. That is narrowed further if I look at just the 10 universities, excluding UMGC, because being smaller, it's about 400 to maybe 1,500 total worst case scenario. Most of that is our new students. You heard in the report, the returning students, our campuses have contact already. They're building in residence hall competition. They're interacting on an ongoing basis. The new students are the ones, especially if they're interacting with multiple universities, that's where we're trying to get the word out, make those contacts, especially with campuses and serving populations that might not have the same experience with college as other students do. So approximately my range, as I mentioned, about 0 to 2% overall, maybe 0.3 to 1.5% for the other 10 universities. So that's the update. I hope that's I'm confident fits within the goals of our policy, and I'm feeling very good about our campus's work. So thank you. Regent Fish.
Thank you.
Please.
For new Regents, I see the graph was 175,000 plus in 2017 or 2018, right? Or 2017, right?
Yes.
But it dropped drastically from there till we hit the COVID, which was like 2019, 2020. Do we know what happened there?
Yeah, so we were on a very good steep peak and growing every year up until COVID. And so around 2019, that's when we saw
No, I see it drop in 2017, right? Is before COVID?
Okay, so let me make sure I understand correctly. So I see our peak is about 2018 is the peak number. The scale of this graph is different than the previous one. We went down a couple thousand students. Then COVID happened, and here's a good comment. Here's a good piece of information to think about with the COVID situation. I was here 4 years ago. We presented enrollment projections before we knew about COVID in 2020. We were still within 1% of the actual enrollment with those original enrollment projections. We went back and created new enrollment projections improved in August, and we were overly pessimistic, but still within 1%. We exceeded our worst case expectations back then. So what happens, and the reason why we're paying attention to the numbers, to your question, I'm getting there, is that the first-time students, if we don't get our first-time students this year, they're not there as a sophomore, junior, and senior, and we were just digging out of that COVID hole. So that's what was going on, is we had a quicker time to degree, more juniors and seniors in the 2019, 2020, 2021, fewer new students in 2020, and that then created a pipeline issue in the long term.
On the question of previous slide, you see College Park and University of Maryland, Baltimore are flat. Why is that?
So both campuses are managing to a set size that they, of graduates and undergraduates that meet their enrollment goals for the campuses. They are sized appropriately,
So
both in the
you
near
said
term.
that they can't grow anymore.
I think President Pines should comment. He has a plan.
So we're working on a plan, Regent Anwar. It's not ready yet in terms of projections, but I'll give you a rough estimate. Over the next 5 years, we tend to grow, I think, approximately about 400, 500 more students, but not much more than that over our total enrollment. But I do want to try to answer your question, not to combat Chad, because I have the same question about what's the drops associated in 2018 and 2019. And I think my colleague at UMGC, I think it was a significant drop at UMGC that has nothing to do with COVID. And then COVID hits in 2021 and 2020, which caused a further drop, and now we're getting back on the trajectory. So you're right, it wasn't related to COVID, it was related to something else before 2020. But we have a strategic group that's working on what projections for College Park it should be.
It was actually, the cause was the military system that paid students was offline at UMGC for a while they tried to modernize it. And so they took a pretty significant drop during that period.
Linda?
Yes, Tom?
Yeah, my question has to do with if you took Global Campus out of there, and you read in the press about the declining college enrollment, demographic changes. I'm just curious, without Global Campus, how do we benchmark against our peers, similar-sized universities, Chad, relative to the projected growth rate here?
That's a good question, one that I can get into more in the future. I don't have that right here, but what I can say is all of our campuses choose similar-sized peers. If any of the presidents or campus representatives have a specific answer to that, that might be better than me guessing at this point.
So I can answer one portion of it, Regent McMillan. If you look at projected high school graduations in the state of Maryland, it's a modest increase, right, for the whole decade up until 2030. So even though across the United States, the number of college-ready high school students is going down and projected to go down across the United States, in the state of Maryland, it's a modest increase over the next 7 years to 2030. So that's not going to significantly happen in Maryland, but it is going to happen around the states that are around us. So for the out-of-state students, there will be a drop in probably applicants over the next 6 to 7 years, and we've been looking at how to, sort of recruit locally and also in different locations around the country.
Thank you.
If I may, the other thing that we need to modernize is how we count heads. The times are different, and we have to start counting effectively and have our state funders count effectively those that are not carrying a full load, those that are doing certificates, micro-credentials. This is all product, and we have not necessarily counted that way.
One more follow-up. It would be helpful, and this is not the appropriate day to do this, but it'd be helpful to look at how the cost of, the student's cost is going up relative to that projection, just to understand the economics per student relative to the growth rate that you're anticipating, that's all.
Sure.
Because again, when you read about it, you hear about it, the cost going up, and that's resulting in decline, so it'd be interesting to see that at some point.
Yes, and that's what Regent Breslin was getting at in his challenge. And it's something, Chad, I think we can take a look at and put that data together, just a different slice.
But I can't help touting the fact that for public education across the 50 states, we're in the middle of the pack. Nowhere near the top. We used to be in 2004, 2005. So if that's a proxy for how well we manage in keeping the costs down, we have dropped significantly.
Dr. Gerald?
In a good way.
Yeah.
Just to respond to the question about UMB, we are planning on increasing the size of our medical school class. We have already regularly increased nursing. In pharmacy, there's a marked decrease in number of applicants to pharmacy schools, so we're trying to be careful and have a class size that matches the quality of the student we're after. And we have put significant emphasis on increasing the number of professional master's degrees at UMB. It's the professional masters that have made up for the drop of interest in social work and pharmacy. So it's being actively managed, I think, would be my response back to you.
Any other questions?
I had one question, pertains to both sides of the finance report. We earlier saw that been approved a tuition increase for in-state students of about 2%. But each year, for the last 8 years that I've been on this committee, we have had doubled that increase for out-of-state students. I believe it was 4.2% or whatever for out-of-state students on average. The Chancellor just said that we're kind of average. Was that in-state or out-of-state tuition? And well, before you answer that, just my question is, has it affected applications from out-of-state students? Because in-state, you can live on campus, most all of our campus, and pay tuition, and you're somewhere between $20,000 and $24,000. Out of state, you're $50,000 to $60,000 once you add in the other. Has that affected the continual double increase on out-of-state students? Has it affected applications or enrollment from out-of-state students?
Do you want me to start on that?
Well, I think the president would have to answer that. Yes.
Because it depends.
Yeah.
Yes, Regent. From Coppin's perspective, what I would say, and probably for all of our institutions, I don't think that it has adversely impacted the interest in our institutions. For example, at Coppin, our applications across the board are up significantly. I think that the cost that you're talking about has more of an impact on retention than the interest. I think students are interested in our institutions, but their financial aid doesn't help them finish the journey when there's that type of cost differential between in-state and out-of-state. That's where we see it the biggest, and I suspect my colleagues may see some of that as well. On the retention front is really the biggest issue.
If I can add to Regent Pope's point, when I was at MEC in 2021, we saw the data that we are exporting more high schoolers out of state than we are importing to Maryland. So that is another big concern. If the tuitions becomes a deterrent for them, then they might not come to Maryland. So I don't know, that's a point he is raising is correct, that we keep climbing up 5% for out of state, and that might impact some of those students to come to Maryland. So.
For Bowie State University, let me respond on the last point about whether we're seeing a decrease owed to the cost for out-of-state students. We are not seeing a decrease for out-of-state. The demand is very high. There might be a difference, and we might need to look across HBCUs versus the other institutions, because there's a great interest in our HBCUs. That remains very strong, and keeping in mind that HBCUs are only in 19 states, DC and the Virgin Islands, so there might be a difference in our other sister schools. And then going back to your earlier question about our projections, we see a great deal of opportunity for our graduate enrollment at Bowie State University. We do have a challenge with housing, just inventory at the undergraduate level, so we are intentionally focused on growing our graduate population, and year to year, we grew our graduate population by 25% from last year to this year.
We should also make the point that, and I'm stating the obvious, we need to recognize that there needs to be a premium
I realize that.
on out-of-staters, because there's an expectation, obviously, by our taxpayers that this is for them. So my impression, and we should get the data, my impression is that cost, what you heard here, cost is not a deterrent to out-of-staters wanting to come here. At the same time, we need to keep most of what we offer to students from Maryland.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I would just reiterate, and to your point, Chancellor, that clearly this board and this system has done a good job of lowering costs if we went from 2003 to where we are today. My only comment, again, would be for both sides of the equation, that we don't settle for that, and that, you know, that's one metric that we'd like to be on the bottom of the country, would be in terms of the cost.
Yeah. Going down, yeah.
So we need to keep
Going
striving.
down
We need to keep striving.
President Anderson.
Thank you. And I just want to also say, from the standpoint of the HBCUs and out of state, I want to also reiterate and thank the board for allowing COP and UMES to actually have the pilot that we're going to be launching this particular fall, giving in-state tuition to out-of-state students who are coming from states that do not have HBCUs. That will help us keep the costs down for those particular students who are really looking to try to find an HBCU. I reminded you before, I grew up in Indiana. There is no HBCU in Indiana. Even when I wanted to go to an HBCU, there was none there that I could have gone to without having to pay an out-of-state fee. So that makes a big difference, and I'm sure that I speak for President Jenkins and myself saying thank you for allowing us to at least do that and start that initiative this fall. That's going to make a difference in helping us level this out.
I also wanted to just, I really appreciate the discourse. I think all the points that have been made have been really important. I also think it's important to recognize with graduate students in particular, there's a lot of shifts in the different types of opportunities available to them around the country. Within our system, in terms of increasing tuition, we have been increasing tuition, and this is something that was brought up at the student council meeting. Chancellor Perman got the opportunity to hear it. Graduate student stipends, graduate student funding, all these things haven't necessarily been increasing at the same rate as cost. And given that, there are typically, especially when it comes to master's programs, more difficulty getting scholarships and stuff like that compared to undergraduate students. And so there is a stronger cost being imposed on this. And so year after year, as we increase these tuitions and everything else stays stagnant, I think that could also put a strain on our graduate students. And definitely something to take into consideration as other campuses around the country are starting to increase benefits, we could call them, to enrolling as a graduate student on those campuses.
Thank you. Any other comment or feedback? So with that, I do want to recognize and thank both Chad and Candace for their work and our campuses on FAFSA. The good news is, and we hope that it continues this way, that we're not expecting the impact to be as significant as I think some others around the country are experiencing. So well done to everybody. And with that, I will make a motion. I'll ask if there is a second to approve.
Second.
Any further discussion or questions? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Chad. As always, great data. The next item on our agenda is an update on the board's work to strengthen Title IX compliance system-wide, specifically with regard to Title IX sexual misconduct. It would be disingenuous to say that the board's focus on Title IX has nothing to do with recent revelations of misconduct at UMBC. The Department of Justice investigation at UMBC did in fact catalyze our action. But I want it to be clear that our work going forward is to strengthen our Title IX policies and practices at every USM university, and to ensure that each one has the structure, staffing, education, training, and resources it needs to run without exception. A well-functioning Title IX office and operations is important. It's been 5 years since we focused the board's attention on Title IX, And even then, the topics under discussion were much broader than sexual misconduct alone. As you know, Title IX is a capacious law that includes many aspects unrelated to sexual misconduct. So it's time for us to sharpen our focus and dedicate ourselves fully to this effort. Because the fact of the matter is that we will have Title IX complaints. In a system of 167,000 students and 42,000 employees, we should have complaints. Because if we don't, then we have fundamental problems with our education and training. We have problems with our reporting structure. We have problems with our access to service or our culture or something else. So let me get to the two work groups we're standing up to ensure that we're doing everything in our power to safeguard our students and employees. The board's Title IX Sexual Misconduct Work Group will examine Title IX operations across the system and recommend to the board actions that will accomplish three things. Protect the health and safety of our students and employees, which is always first and foremost. Fortify Title IX compliance. And for those of you who don't know, the new rules came out this morning, and they are going to be in effect August 1st, so very timely. And promote best practices across the system. The group is co-chaired by Michelle Gordine and Tim McMillan. As a physician, Regent Gordine's focus has long been squarely on health equity and policy, and she chairs the board's committee on education policy and student life and safety. Regent McMillan is vice chair of the board's committee on intercollegiate athletics and student athletic health and welfare. He's a celebrated former athlete, a national leader in collegiate sports administration, and a long-term regent. The co-chairs are joined by fellow regents Jeff Ganella, Ike Leggett, and Josiah Parker, and as well as a former regent and former Secretary of Higher Ed, Pat Forstano. Also on the group are Bowie State President, Dr. Bro, in her capacity as chair of the Council of University System Presidents. Dr. Ann Kademian, Executive Director of the University at Shady Grove, and herself a former athlete. Dr. Zakia Lee, USM Associate Vice Chancellor for Student Affairs. Ms. Angela Nastasi, who is Director and Title IX Coordinator at the University of Maryland, College Park. Ms. Candace McLaren Lanham, who is Chief of Staff in the Office of the Attorney General. And Ms. Madison Howard, who is a junior at Towson University and a current member of TU's field hockey team. As you can see, this team is constructed very purposefully. We have 2 students on the committee. Over 50% of the committee were student athletes in their educational careers, and 2/3 of this committee is female. David Mosca is also going to sit in as an ex officio member. He's the head of our internal audit and the vice chancellor for accountability. And all of this will be staffed by Denise Wilkerson, who is the chief of staff to the chancellor. The group will be guided and will oversee the work of a national expert in Title IX compliance. And most of you met Janet yesterday at our 2-hour training session. That expert will help the work group develop a set of best practices, including the structure, staffing, and resourcing of Title IX offices, policies and procedures guiding reporting, investigation, and adjudication, and student education and faculty and staff training in the Title IX law and in compliance. These best practices will be shared widely with the board, our presidents, and USM students and employees. So in the area, there are 3 basic areas. In the area of audit, under the direction of the chancellor, the work group will then ensure independent audits at our universities to assess alignment of their Title IX operations with identified best practices and develop any action plans to close gaps. From an education perspective, we'll be working with communications and branding experts to explore new and better ways to educate students and employees on Title IX and to facilitate safe and secure reporting options. From a timeline perspective, our timeline is very aggressive, and it does start now. The group's first meeting was held yesterday. We have 3 phases carrying us over the summer and spring and summer. And while we know that our work will continue past this date, we've promised the Board of Public Works that we'll provide them with a status report at their meeting on September 11th. Now to the second work group, and I promise I won't take as long defining this one. The report, this group is entitled the Reporting Major Investigations Work Group. It'll focus on the process for reporting to the Chancellor and to the Board major external investigations taking place at the university. The group will review our existing policies and practices, identify any gaps in reporting procedures, and recommend mechanisms to close them, including new policy development. We call this our No Surprises Work Group because, as the Chancellor says, we should never be surprised to learn of something major happening at one of our campuses. We need reliable and enforceable reporting procedures to ensure the problems come to us with speed and clarity. The work group will be chaired by Regent Hugh Breslin. He'll be joined by fellow Regents Andy Smirek, Lewis Pope, Bill Wood, as well as a representative from the AG's office, and Kelsey Beckett will staff this work group. We're firming up the timeline now, but we don't anticipate this will be a long-term work group. So I want to thank everyone. I want to thank the presidents for supporting us in this effort. I want to thank the regents, and I want to thank everyone who's agreed to serve and advise on this critically important, on both of these critically important work groups. And I'm happy now to take any questions. Questions? Okay, hearing none, our final order of business is to affirm the selection of Dr. Fernando Morales Wilhelm as the president of the University of Maryland Center for Environmental Science. Regent Addicks chaired the UMC's President Search and Screening Committee. Vice Chancellor Michelle Masucci and Isaacson Miller search firm assisted. A dynamic search committee of faculty, staff, students, alumni, and community members reviewed an impressive applicant pool and sent the board a short list of very strong candidates. I'd like to thank Regent Addicks, who happens to be out of town at the moment, for his leadership. And I will ask, is Dr. Masucci still here? She just stepped out. Okay. Well, she won't be saying a few words. I'll let instead the Chancellor say a few words about the search and about the candidate.
Well, it's always dangerous to ask the Chancellor to say a few words. But I know, and I'm expressing the enthusiasm of our presidents because I heard from them, that I'm happy to present to you for affirmation, having presented this to our Gov-and-Com committee, the selection, your selection of Dr. Fernando Morales as president of UMC's. He comes to us from the deanship at George Mason. He was a longtime faculty member at College Park. Before that, that's all to the good. as we think through how we can leverage all of the talent at many of our institutions focused on climate action, environmental science, sustainability. He is a world-renowned expert in these matters, and based on your selection, I offered him the position, which he quickly accepted. He's very happy to be back home in the Maryland family, and he will come to join this great group of presidents and join me as the Vice Chancellor for Sustainability so that we can keep our commitment as a system and institutions to Maryland's aggressive and needed climate goals. He'll be starting on July 1st.
And so, yes.
I'd like to make a quick comment.
Can't imagine why.
Fernando's going to follow the lead of President Ginsburg by having great preparation and hit a running start. He's already met 4 of our 6 units around the state. He's met our Board of Visitors. He went to the Cardin event. He's going to come to our convocation and commencement. So July 1st, which is actually 72 days and 13 hours from now, both Fernando and I will be very happy to enter our new roles in academia.
Well, I can't resist. Jokes aside, Bill Dennison, thank you so much for your leadership.
Madam Chair.
Of course, you're not done yet.
Madam Chair, I have one. We should acknowledge the recent catastrophe with the Key Bridge and our UMCs, folks getting asked to be involved in that process. And Bill Dennison was
instrumental.
Yeah, it was instrumental in that. So I think it just should be noted.
Yeah, I think we'd all be remiss if we didn't thank Bill. He not only jumped in when we had the catastrophe at the bridge, he worked the halls like all of the other presidents during the legislative session. And Bill, thank you for really robust support as the interim president for this organization. So another round of applause. So at this time, I move that the board affirm its selection of Dr. Morales Wilhelm. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, then the motion carries. Our final act today is to close the meeting. The Open Meetings Act permits public bodies to close their meetings to the public in circumstances outlined in 3-305 of the Act, and to carry out administrative functions exempted by 3-103 of the Act. The Board of Regents will now vote to reconvene in closed session. The agenda for the public meeting today includes a written statement and a citation of the legal authority and reasons for closing the meeting, and a listing of the topics to be discussed. The statement has been provided to the Regents and is posted on the USM's website. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, the motion passes. No. Yes. I can hear you, Bill.
Could I just make one quick comment?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to say that I was unable to attend the board meeting in person today, but I've been listening on the cell phone, and really appreciate all of the input that everybody has put into the meeting. And I want to say publicly that I have joined in Regent Regents and Regent McMillan's suggestions regarding tuition and enrollment.
Thanks.
I mean, I was like,
Thanks, Bill. And so noted. Anything else?
Not for me. Thank you so much.
All right. And we stand adjourned. And the closed meeting is in this room, so why don't we take a 10-minute break or reconvene at 11:30, right here.
Right here?
Yes.
Same to you.